Toda Rabbah, Ya Eloheinu, Ve Elohe Abotenu, Elohe Abraham, Elohe Yitzchak, Ve Elohe Yisrael. Ha'el Hagibor, Ha'el Hanora, El Gomer Kol Debarim Tobin. Na Ya El Eloheinu, Bebakosha, Tabi Ruach, Shalka Bakayenu, Bagam Ken Al Natikwak Memenu, Et Ruach Kwat Shaka Bakayenu, Bequarbenu Al Ta'azo, Babakoshaya, Hosha, Watazil Na, U Mahe Na Eko Bene Israel, Mekal Zarenu, Warakes Kunanu Mekol, Gilunenu, Na Yahoah Eloheinu, Tam Shikli Yot Itanu, Watam Shik, Lebarek Kunanu, Wagam Kaina Ya El Elyon, Ki Rakata, Anaknu Mitpali, Ki Ain Shawe Lakaba Shemayim, Oba Aretz. Hallelujah! 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 Amen, amen. Amen. Shalom. Giving honor and praise to the Creator and the Maker of heaven and earth. Ask the people, Aki, if I can be heard clearly. I want to make sure it's not static and so forth and so on. We call this one here Hebrew history to be understood. Now, I want to sit there and mention two things in particular, all right, and show them for edification purposes. As people may know, this here, can it be seen? Is a book I wrote, available on CreateSpace and on Amazon. Egypt Talking Writing. Severely disproving the fact or the idea that the Torah is plagiarized out of Egypt. Anybody saying that doesn't understand the culture of each. And then, can this be seen? The new book that came out last week, Blessed be the Most High, Deuteronomy 28, 15 to 68, The Condition of the Blacks, History Untold to the Masses. Now, that right there actually, believe it or not, is not available until Friday, the 16th. So I just want that to be noted. All right, so we're going to go on in this particular aspect and in this particular lesson, okay? That way it can be noted for edification purposes. Are there any questions, comments, so forth and so on? All right, record this one here as stated. Ask them if I can be heard clearly, Aki. Oh, all right, Toda Rabbah. All right, record this one here. History, Hebrew history, to be noted and understood. Now, in the past, yeah, because I made my little notes and so forth and so on. In the past, we went over the fact, brothers and sisters, that Hebrew was going to be, believe it or not, the national language of this country. But obviously for black reasons, that wasn't done. Because they knew who the true Hebrews were. Hands down. All right? Now, want to sit there and state this for, and I know what the problem is real quick. To be noted and understood. I got to move this over here. That's where everything's still seen clearly? All right. I'm going to ask the brother to read a couple of things out the Tanakh as we go over this particular thing, all right? If you can, my brother, go to the book of Genesis, chapter 11, verse 31. Bavak Washah. All right, we are in Genesis 11, verse 31. All right? Toda Rabbah. Kane, Tom Sheik.
Genesis chapter 11, verse 30. Hallelujah.
31.
31.
Kane, 11 and 31.
Okay. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
And Terah took Abraham his son, and Lot the son of Haran, and his son's son, and Sarai his daughter-in-law, and his son's Abraham wife. And they went forth with them from Ur of the Chaldeans to go to the land of Canaan. And they came into Haran and dwelt there.
Now, I want to sit there and emphasize upon this particular aspect. So if you were to look at it on a map, let's say this right here was Ur of Chaldees. They went north here to Haran, right? And then as time went on, they went here to, let's say this is Canaan. All right, I know it's kind of a weird looking kind of map, but just want that to be noted and seen for edification purposes. Now, okay, if you go, brothers and sisters, with the brother, we're going to go to Ezekiel chapter 23, verse 15. All right, Toda Aki. We are in Ezekiel after Jeremiah, chapter 23, verse 15. All right? King, Toda. Now this right here is speaking about the children of Israel that was scattered. Tom Sheep.
Ezekiel chapter 3, verse 23, verse 15. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Girded with girdles upon their loins, and pendant turbans upon their heads, all of them captains to look upon. The likeness of the sons of Babylon, even of Chaldea, the land of their nativity.
Now, that right there is telling you that the nativity, the native origin, where the children of Israel were native at, was from the land of Chaldea. All right? Now, in modern times, this is in what they call the land of southern Iraq, by modern day Basra. All right? So that's something to be noted for edification purposes. So when they start speaking about what they refer to as Mesopotamia, which is the Greek word meaning between the rivers, or the land between the rivers, we begin to see those rivers were the Tigris and the Euphrates. All right? That is the origin of where the children of Israel, through Abraham, later on Yitzchak, and then later on Yaakov came from. So the paternal line, the line of their fathers, of the children of Israel, comes from the land of Chaldea. Now, when you go back in your own time and read Genesis chapter 11, 31, and Ezekiel chapter 23, 15, is where one can gain that particular understanding. Now, as we know, Jacob had 12 sons: Reuben, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Yisachar, Zebulun, Yosef, Ubenyamin. These sons later on, as noted, became known as the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. All right, so one thing to be noted and understood is that Abraham's wife was Sarah, and that Isaac's wife was Rebekah. And Yaakov, for multiple reasons, wound up being one of the first polygynists that we see in the scriptures. All right, so he had from the Aramean people. Now I want to sit there and state this. Let's just say Aram is over here, right? So the Aramean people were later on by the Greeks called Syria. So now when you go even in your own time, begin to look and see the Aramean people were people of color. All right? So let it be noted and understood. You have the Chaldeans, noted by Godfrey Higgins in his book, Calypsis, volume 2, that the Chaldeans were Negroes. Negro from the Spanish for black. The Aramean people, when you go into a book entitled Near Eastern Texts and Pictures by James Pritchard, you go and see that the people of the Aramean people, also known as the Syrian people, were people of color. Now, I want to go into this right here. Aram, right, in the Bible, was called this by the ancient Egyptians, the people of Kor, Khor. So when you go even on Google and you want to type in the images of the people of Kor, you will begin to see people that are black men. All right, so now you have Rebecca that was an Aramean. You had Leah and Raquel that were Aramean women. So therefore, the maternal line from the mommy side of the children of Israel were of the Aramean people. This is the beginning of Hebrew history. Are there any questions so far? All right, so I want this to be noted for edification purposes. Now, as we know, brothers and sisters, the children of Israel, all right, went down into the land of Egypt. Now, the reason being, for one, Joseph was sold there, all right? Now, when you go into a book entitled Understanding the Old Testament by a guy named James Bernard, you will begin to see, know, and understand that the people that Joseph was sold to were very much in trade of slaves between them and the Egyptians. It was a common practice. This is how Yehuda and Gad, when you read in the testimony of the tribes of Israel, said, you know what, let's sit there and sell them. We see some Midianites / Ishmaelites coming to do this kind of thing. You understand? So it was already a common practice to sit there and sell people off. That's how the sons of Jacob knew, well, we already know what it is. We know what these people do. All right? So as far as it goes in that particular case. So as Joseph went down here, and he wasn't the only one around that time that was sold, but because we're dealing with the story of the children of Israel, he's like, gets the highlight, you might say, because the Bible, believe it or not, is not a book for the world. What some people may sit there and think. It starts off getting into where a particular people in their origin come from, called the children of Israel. All right? So I want that hopefully be noted and understood for edification purposes. Now, the people that wound up going down into the land of Egypt, okay, they were called by the Egyptians the Amu. All right? Sometimes it's spelled with one M in there, sometimes it's spelled with two M's. Now, the term Amu, all right, is an Egyptian term meaning Asiatic. So now, when we get to look and see in Dynasty 11, Dynasty 12, Dynasty 13, and you begin to see that Amu going into the land of Egypt is not too hard to figure out. When you go in your own time, you can look up what they refer to as the tomb of this guy here. Kemonhotep. He was the vizier. That is to say, like the governor or the helper or the assistant to one of the pharaohs in Dynasty 12. When you go in your own time to what they call the tomb of Kemonhotep, you will also begin to see the pictures of the Amu or the Asiatics that were going into the land of Egypt. Okay, so hopefully that could be noted and understood for edification purposes. Now, when we say Asiatics, in this case, we're not speaking about China or Japan. We're speaking about, as we went over last May in the presentation I did entitled, Did the Torah Come from the Culture of Egypt? Actually, in this kit right here upstairs. All right. When we're speaking about Asiatics, we're talking about the people in the place called the Levant. All right. So I want to sit there from the Levant. All right. Or Levant. Sorry, I spoke it wrong. All right. So that could be noted and understood for edification purposes. So, are there any questions before we continue? No? Okay. Now, brothers and sisters, continue on in what we were sitting up there and presenting. When you go and look, these Asiatics came, brothers and sisters, from the same area as Chaldea, Haran, Canaan, and Aram. All right, so I want that to be noted, understood. Unlike what some paid agents among the black community, no offense intended, trying to push the idea that the Asiatics were white, emphatically incorrect. All right, so hopefully that could be noted for understanding purposes. Okay. The timing in which we're speaking of, in this case of ancient Egypt, is referred to in chronology as the Middle Kingdom. Now that becomes important as we go along in this presentation. As stated, this is called Hebrew history to be noted and understood. All right? All right, so that way it could be noted for edification purposes. All right. Now, one of the things I want to point out also is that the ancient Egyptians never denied that they were ever slave masters. As a matter of fact, certain Egyptian word for slave is this: hem, that's one, and kem nu, K-H, kem nu. I want to sit there and have that to be noted. All right? So, Hem and Kemnu, those are two different Egyptian words in regards to the word for slave. All right, and when you go into what is referred to as the Brooklyn Papyrus, 35.1446, you read about the Kemnu. When you read about the slaves in the Imperial Papyrus, you read about the Hem and the Hemet. Hemet meaning female slave. I pointed this out even in a book that I wrote entitled Egypt Talking Writing, Did the Torah Come from the Culture of Tamari? All right, so therefore, understanding certain things like that is very important to be noted for edification purposes, okay? Now, the book of Josephus in other aspects speaks about the children of Israel building pyramids in Egypt. A lot of people try to say, no, the Israelites never considered to have built any pyramids, and so forth and so on. That is the same mentality that the European or the white people have by saying, excuse me, niggers did not sit there and build the White House. Oh, yes, they did. The government of the United States got some black folks together from other slave masters, and they built the White House. That's what happened. So that's something that should be noted and understood for edification purposes. But because you want to sit there and look at your grand architecture and try to deny that a simple old slave was the one who built it, you try to hide that under the dust. Even though the records of America don't deny it, only verbal people who know good and well they cannot truly deny it and hope black folk don't read, or the people paying agents to try to give you and sell you a European version, New Age movement Egypt, want to also deny the scriptures in the history where the Hebrews coincide with it. So that's something I wanted to also point out in regards to this. How can you tell when you go into what they refer to as the mud brick pyramids of Amenhotep III, the mud brick pyramids of Senusret II, the mud brick pyramids of Senusret III? These kind of things were built by those who dealt with bricks already. When you go and you read about the ziggurats that was in the land of Sumer, you read about that being made with bricks. When you read about the pyramids of the old kingdom of Egypt, you begin to know and see and understand that that was made of stone. Then later on in Dynasty 18, in the New Kingdom, also made of stone. So in the Middle Kingdom is when they get the mud brick pyramids. So that's how you could tell the architecture was done by a different set of people that was already in the land of Egypt, because it was cheaper labor, AKA slave labor. All right, so hopefully that could be noted for edification purposes. Now, we went over, as I stated, the Brooklyn, all right, Papyrus 35.1446. Now, this right here, you can look up in your own time. Let me write the whole word out. Papyrus, all right? 35.1446. The name Shifra is in there. The word Menachem is in there. The word Asher is in there. The word Yissaschar is in there. We just said some of them names earlier. Those are some of the people of the 12 tribes and their descendants that was in the land of Egypt being treated as the Kemnu, that is to say the slaves that was in Egypt. That papyrus dates to the Middle Kingdom during the era of what they call Sobek-hotep III. So Bek-hotep III was the predecessor and brother of Neferhotep I. Neferhotep I did not have a son that ruled after him, but his brother named Sihafor ruled after him because his body could not be found. That leaves credence when you look in the side of the records that his army was not around, which also leaves credence to why in the world did they find his body? Because Jehovah killed him. That's why. So I just want this to be noted when you go into these kind of records, to let it be noted and understood. All right? So next we can sit there and get into what is referred to as this. The Apura Papyrus. I-P-U-W-E-R. All right? The Apura Papyrus also dated to the Middle Kingdom. How do we know that? Because it speaks of a group of people called the Magi. The Magi were a group of Ethiopian/Cushites that were used by the Egyptians in their army. All right? So that doesn't date to the Old Kingdom. And you really hardly ever see that in the New Kingdom, but you see that frequently in the Middle Kingdom. All right? So I just want that to be noted for edification purposes. The Imperial Papyrus speaks about the river turning into blood, flies is throughout the land, the slaves are escaping, sorrow is throughout the land, there is no light, the slaves are rejoicing, that which was clothed in royal attire is now in garments, woe is Upper Egypt. So all of that right there is when you see the Imperial Papyrus. All right? Now, mind you, not for nothing, I went over all of this inside the book I wrote that's available on Amazon. All right? So, just want that to be noted for edification purposes. Now, what I'm going to do is erase this and then get into the next part. All right? So, all right, are there any questions or comments only related to this? All right, so I'm gonna, with the time allotted, deal with this right here, erase this. And all of this is being recorded. You can look this up in your own time and so forth and so on. All right? So, how's everybody doing? Can I get a 1 for yes? Okay. And if not a 1, then a 2 for anything else. Make sure it can be heard. And please, people, let me know if you can hear me clearly, because I can't hear myself through you. All right? I don't hear what you hear. So that's why I asked the audience if they're able to participate. If you're feeling cool and you're able to hear clearly, please press 1. All right? So, because we was trying to work on the sound quality and so forth and so on, all right? Everything cool? All right. We got any ones? All right. So, all right, bless. We're going to continue on in what we're talking about and what we're discussing. Now, why does the Bible speak of this guy, yet brothers such as myself is saying that Ramses or Ramses is not the Pharaoh of the Exodus? It's called an anachronism, all right? Anachronism. Anachronism is, if I were to sit there and write, in 1995, I am in the borough of Queens. I am attending Springfield High School. But if I'm writing for 1995 era, there is no more Springfield High School. Now I'm in 2016, but the building is still there. So that is what an anachronism is. So when you go in the Bible and you read about them building a Pithom of Ramses, and it said they journeyed from Ramses to Sukkot and so forth in the book of Exodus, that is called an anachronism, because the land where they were at, all right, is referred to at different times as Avaris. Another time is referred to as Peru Nefer. Okay? Another time it is referred to as Warati, all the same place. So Ramses, Avaris, Peru Nefer, Warati is all the same place. All right? Hopefully that be noted for edification purposes. That's what I wanted to point out in that particular aspect. Now, as the history of Israel goes on, we know, dealing with the biblical account, that they left out of the land of Egypt, all right? The parting of the sea, the children of Israel went through, the Egyptian army followed, the Egyptian army was drowned, and then the Most High led the children of Israel through the wilderness to Sinai. Now, when you go in your own time, you can look up what is referred to as the Sarah Bit El Hadim. All right? The Sarah Bit El Hadim. That's actually in the book that I wrote too, entitled Egypt Talking Writing. The Sarah Bit El Hadim is in the Hebraic account written in ancient Canaanite / Paleo Hebrew about the Exodus about the children of Israel, the Hebrews, Moshe, Yahweh, and so forth and so on. So you may want to check that out in your own particular time frame. All right? So now, getting back into what we were discussing in this particular case, the reason why a lot of historians jump from the Exodus going all the way, let's say, to King David, is because many of them deal what is referred to as regnal dating. All right? Okay, can I be heard clearly? All right, regnal dating, brothers and sisters, only deals with the reign of kings or leaders or great emperors. All right, this right here is the book that I kept referring to that I wrote. It's available on Amazon and on CreateSpace currently. The other one is not available to Friday. But yeah, that's it right here, okay? So, when it says regnal dating, what that right there is talking about is the dates of kings. So being that Samuel was not a king in that respect, being that Samson was not a king in that respect, Eglon was not a king in that respect, and Ibzan was not a king in that respect. The fact bears still to witness that what they're dealing with is going to take you all the way back to the kings of a people. So for edification purposes, let's do that same particular aspect, all right? Now, what is referred to, brothers and sisters, all right, as the Amarna records. This dates back all the way to different pharaohs of Dynasty 18 of Egypt. Namely, in this case, his name was Akhenaten. But it speaks about other records that even existed before his existence. Now, in the Amarna records, there's a thing you can look up on your own, EA 256. All right? In it, it speaks about Dadua. It speaks about Benim-Ima in Yeshua. Dadua, all right? D-A-D-U-A, D-A-D-U-A equals Dawid. All right? So that's one of the things to be noted for edification purposes. Now, also, that also is pointed out in the new book that I wrote, which will be available online this coming Friday. But getting back, all right, back into the point. So they're dealing with regnal dating. So a lot of times they don't talk about Shimshon and the judges that we see in Judges, the Barak era, and so forth and so on. And they'll jump straight all the way to Dawid in world history. Now, there's a thing, brothers and sisters, called the Danite stele. D-A-N-I-T-E stele. Now, in that, dated from what they found in 1994, but it's dated all the way to the era of the 9th century BCE. One of the Hebrew phrases in there says, Beit Dawid Melech Yisrael. Now, in that particular aspect, the naysayers attempt to say, well, that means Beit Dod, the house of an uncle. No, it is saying Beit Dawid, that Melech Yisrael, not the house of the uncle, king of Israel. It's saying the house of David, king of Israel. But as stated, they know who the true children of Israel are. So shh on that fact, in case these Negroes begin to read. So just want that to be noted for edification purposes. All right. So next, in this particular aspect, if we're going to continue on in this particular case, I want to go, believe it or not, I'm talking fast and loud for a reason, so it can be heard. And so if you're following along and taking notes, you can sit there and just take your notes and read along and ask any questions afterward if you happen to have any. I'm doing this the same way they do in college lectures. Okay? So you will find in college lectures, they don't sit there and write each and every single sentence. So I'm not writing each and every single sentence. I'll have 4 pages of notes, highlight this, that, the third, then move on. Okay, so the next thing in this particular teaching right here, called Hebrew history, to be noted and understood. You have this guy right here, Solomon or Shlomo, son of David. All right? And this guy right here, Hiram, said by some as Hiram Abif. He is written of in the book of Kings. He was part of the Zidonian people, and Solomon did trade with him. He was Hiram, king of Zidon. All right? So I want that to be noted. Their league, okay, League, okay, is how the Israelites, commonly known as Hebrews in history for the most part, and the Zidonians wound up coming together with a league and later on forming the people that history from Enician. Let me yeah, I'm right. I'm tripping. All right, Phoenician. All right, now the word Phoenician is the Greek word simply meaning purple. That was a name they were called as because they did trade one with another. That's not a name that they called themselves. So I want to put generic. All right, it wasn't a nationalistic name, it was a generic name. So the Phoenician people were Israelites and Hamites that were in league with each other at a particular time. Okay, so I want that hopefully to be noted for edification purposes. All right, now, brother, if you got the Tanakh right there, I need you to go to Ezekiel chapter 27, please. Ezekiel chapter 27, verse 11. Thank you very much. And let me know when you're there. All right, continue. Ezekiel 27, verse 11.
Ezekiel chapter 27, verse 11. Hallelujah. The men of Arvad and Helek were upon thy walls round about, and the Gamadim were in the towers. They hanged their shields upon the walls round about. They have perfected thy beauty. Tarshish was thy merchant by reason of the multitude of all kinds of riches, with silver, iron, tin, and lead. They traded for all thy wars. Javan, Tubal, and Meshesh. They were thy traffickers. They traded thy persons and men and vessels and brass for all thy merchandise. They were the house of Togarmah. Traded for thy wars with horses and horsemen and mules. The men of Dedan were thy traffickers. Many isles were on the mark of thy hand. They brought thee in tribute horns of ivory and ebony. Aram was thy merchant by reason of thy and the multitude of thy wealth. They traded for thy wars with carbuncles, purple, and richly woven works.
Now, I wanted the brother just to read that particular part right there. That right there is in Ezekiel chapter 27. All right? So, when you read that in your own particular time, when you go now into verse 17, it says this: Judah in the land of Israel, they were thy traffickers. They traded for thy merchandise wheat of Menes and balsam and honey and oil and balm. Damascus was thy merchant for the multitude of thy wealth. Right? Then in verse 19, Vedan and Javan traded with Yon for thy wares. Now Vedan right there actually is Ut-Dan, which means in Dan. Dan is one of the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. So now, that right there in Ezekiel 27 is speaking about the king of Tyrus or the king of Tyre. Tyre is also the place where the land of Zidon, Z-I-D-O-N was. So these people wound up becoming noted in history in unison as the Phoenicians. And as the brother read, they traded in purple. That's why the Greeks later on called them Phoenician, the Greek word for purple. All right, so all of that is confirmed biblically and when you read externally. All right, so I just hope that could be noted for edification purposes. Okay, so now you begin to see in part how the tribes of Israel in that particular case ended up beginning to disperse and disperse. Begin to disperse and disperse. All right, so are there any questions only related to this before we continue on with the rest? All right, so All right, so what we're going to continue on and do is stay in what they refer to as the regnal dating aspect. We're going to go and talk a little bit in Hebrew history to be noted and understood. We're going to talk a little bit, brothers and sisters, about the kings of Israel, if we will. Now, because after Solomon, we know good and well that the kingdom winded up splitting. You had the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. Okay? So that should be noted for edification purposes. The next particular thing, all right, in this aspect is this. We're going to jump, brothers and sisters, into this particular aspect right here. 2 Kings, right? Chapter 15, verse 20 and verse 29. So if the brother can read that, 2 Kings 15, 20 and 29, and the book of 2 Kings, all right? We're going to 17, 1 through 3. Okay, thank you, Aki. Tom Sheep. We are in 2 Kings 15, verse 20, and then verse 29.
2 Kings verse 15, verse 20. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
And Menahem exacted the money of Israel, even all the mighty men of wealth of each man 50 shekels of silver, to give to the king of Assyria.
Now, one of the things to point out, this king of Assyria by the name was named Tiglath-Pileser III. All right, now go down to verse 29. We are in 2 Kings 15, 29. All right.
In the days of Pekah, king of Israel, came to
Tiglath-Pileser,
king of Assyria, and took Ijon and Abel-Maacah,
Tamshi,
Jonah and Kadesh and Hazar and Gidil and Galil, and all the land of Naphtali.
Now, Naphtali is one of the tribes of Israel. So we already see, all right, brothers and sisters, in history that Tiglath-Pileser took the tribe of Naphtali. Okay? So let that be noted for edification purposes. Now, brother, go with me to 2 Kings 17, verse 1, so we can gain an understanding. Now, it says in the days of Pekah, the king of Israel, that Tiglath-Pileser took the tribe of Naphtali. Tom Sheik.
2 Kings verse 17 verse 1.
Right. Hallelujah.
In the 12th year of Ahaz, king of Judah, began Hoshea, the sons of Elah, to reign in Samaria over Israel, and reigned 9 years.
Tom Sheik.
And he did that was which of all evil in the sight of the Lord. Yet not as him, king of Israel, that were before him.
Right.
Against them came up Shalmaneser,
right,
king of Assyria, and Hoshea became his servant and brought him presents. And the king of Assyria found conspiracy in Hoshea, for he had sent messengers to the king of Egypt, and offered no present to the king of Assyria, as he had done year by year.
Now, let's go over some of this stuff with the time allotted. It says that you had the guy Tiglath-Pileser, right? Tiglath-Pileser. Then we see about the guy Shalmaneser, right? Now, these were Assyrian kings that ruled in what we refer to as the 8th century BCE. Tiglath-Pileser is known for taking the tribe of Naphtali. When you go in your own time to the book of Chronicles, right? Chapter 5, not now, but in your own time, the book of Chronicles, chapter 5, verse 25 and 26. You see no good and well that he also took the tribe of Reuben, the tribe of Gad, and the tribe of Manasseh from the east side of the Jordan and brought them to Assyria. So now we already see Naphtali, Gad, Reuben, and Manasseh in that particular land by the Assyrians. Tiglath-Pileser III, his successor, was named Shalmaneser V. Now, all of these different kings of Assyria actually spoke about capturing the children of Israel, all right, in their own particular rankings. So I want that hopefully to be noted. We read, as the brother read, about Saul, all right, king of Egypt. Now, a lot of scholars attempt to sit there and state that they never read any Egyptian record of a king named Saul. But as we know, there are hyphenated names, there are shortened names, there are nicknames, there are aliases, and so forth and so on. This Saul, king of Egypt, is still debated between whether or not it was a guy named Osorkon of Egypt of Dynasty 24, or was it Shabaka of Dynasty 25? So being that both of those dynasties at a time was concurrent, Dynasty 24 and Dynasty 25 of Egypt, that's where they sit there and debate to this day concerning that particular matter. All right, so the Israelites tried to make an alliance with the Egyptians, and as we see, that alliance did not work. Okay, so hopefully that could be noted and understood for edification purposes. The brother read about Ahaz, king of the children of Israel. Next, we're going to go, okay, into the book of 2 Kings, chapter 18, verse 13. All right, so we can gain an understanding concerning what we're talking about. We are in 2 Kings, okay, 18, verse 13. Tom Sheik, my friend.
Now, the 14th year of King Hezekiah, they Sennacherib, king of Assyria, come up against all the fortified cities of Judah and took them. And Hezekiah, king of Judah, sent to the king of Assyria to Lachish, saying, I have offended, return from me. That which thou puttest upon me, I will bear.
Now, that right there is speaking about the Assyrian king, all right, by the name, can I still be heard clearly? By the name of Sennacherib, all right? Sennacherib was the king who defeated in history in the year 710 BCE a guy named Merodach Baladan of Egypt. Merodach Baladan of Babylon. And he also defeated the Ethiopians that were ruling over in the land of Egypt in history. And as we see in the scriptures, he also defeated in part the tribe of Judah. Okay, so just want that to be noted for edification purposes. As stated, we're dealing in aspects of what they call regnal dating. Sennacherib. So the kings of importance of Assyria to the children of Israel in this presentation is Tiglath-Pileser, Shalmaneser, Sargon, and then his son Sennacherib. Okay, so all of these different kings spoke about the Israelites in their record. So how then can the Israelites be amiss in history when there's other nations speaking of the Israelites? Come on now, stop that. All right, so just for that to be noted for edification purposes. All right. Now, when the tribes of the northern kingdom fell, their city by default named Samaria, said in Hebrew as Shomron, also fell. Yet, we know good and well and understand that there were still Israelites living in the northern kingdom, though it was not under a particular king. Okay, so the time we're speaking of now, we're getting into the 7th century BCE. Okay, so that way it can be noted for edification purposes. All right, with the time allotted and what we're dealing with. If we remember, brothers and sisters, what we're dealing with and what we're going over, it should be hopefully clear that, not to sound haughty, I'm citing my sources and where I'm getting my information from. Okay, now, next, if we will, because one of the things, not to sound ridiculous, you will find when you start writing books, doing presentations, college-like teaching, you will find yourself looking at the debate talk and the debate world and saying that was fine. All right, so just hopefully that could be noted for edification. This is not for debate. This is for building and knowledge purposes. So, next, brothers and sisters, the Assyrian kings, after a while, they began to decline. So the next kingdom to come up, brothers and sisters, was Babylon. So let me write this down right here. You had Assyria, all right, then Babylon. Okay, so let's continue on in this particular aspect. I'm gonna ask the brother to read 2 Kings chapter 24, verse 7. Get into some history, then get back to what we're talking about. 2 Kings 24, verse 7, Toda Aki. We're speaking right now about the Babylonians coming up as a power and what they did. Read, Tomshi, Toda.
And the king of Egypt came not again any more out of his land. For the king of Babylon had taken from the brook of Egypt until the river of Euphrates all that pertained to the king of Egypt.
Now, the king of Egypt, we just read 2 Kings, right? 2 Kings 24, 7. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, defeated in that particular aspect Necho Behembre. That is to say, the king that ruled in Egypt in that particular time. You read about the name Necho when you go into the book of Jeremiah itself. Okay, so you got Assyria, then you have Babylon. So then after Babylon, now comes up as a power. Assyria falls. And what does Egypt do? Attempt to sit there, being two-faced, run out of there to try to defend the Assyrians. But that's why it says they came no more up out of the land, because the king of Babylon was on smash, to put it in layman terms. Tom Sheep. We are in verse 8.
Joachim was 18 years old when he began to reign. And he reigned in Israel 3 months, and his mother's name was Neshuta, the daughter of Eldan of Jerusalem.
Now go down to verse 12. We are now in 2 Kings 24, verse 12.
And Joachim, the king of Egypt, the king of Judah, went out to the king of Babylon. And he and his mother and his servants and his princes and his officers and the king of Babylon took him in the 8th year of his reign. And he carried out thence all the treasures of the house of the Lord and the treasure of the king of the house, and cut in pieces all the vessels of gold which Solomon, king of Israel, had made in the temple of the Lord.
Now, what he's talking about happened with the era of King Jehoiachin, king of Judah, in the year 597 BCE. The Babylonians actually made a record of that particular thing, in which you go, brothers and sisters, after Friday, if you purchase online this particular book right here, I get into that particular subject, all right, where he actually speaks about Jehoiachin being one of his captives. Okay, so let that be noted. So that was the first time. Now, go, brother, if you can, all right, because we're dealing with the regular data. Speak about Assyria, spoke about Babylon. Now, Babylon took over Judah in stage 1, 597. Go to 2 Kings, right, chapter 25, all right, 25, verse 1, 11 through 12. All right, so read verse 1, then go to verse 11. Tom Sheik told out.
And it came to pass in the 9th year of his reign, in the 10th month, in the 10th day of his month, that Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came he and all his army against Jerusalem, and they camped against it, and they built forts against it round about.
Now, Jeremiah chapter 1 speaks about the armies of the north coming against the people of Jerusalem. Now, when it says the armies of the north, it is actually speaking about Babylon, because after Assyria fell in the year 609, 612 BCE to the Babylonians, Nabopolassar, and then later on his son, the famous Nebuchadnezzar, they set up the Chaldean rule in Babylon, being dynasty 11. All right, so getting back into the next particular subject, you have Jehoiachin, then you have Zedekiah, king of Yehuda. Zedekiah, okay? Zedekiah, the king of Judah in 586 BCE. This is now the year 2016. 2016 plus 586 gives you 26,000 and change. That means what we're talking about happened 2,600 years ago. The kingdom of Judah fell, so there was no more kingdom of Judah. The southern kingdom had fell. All of that is now. Go to verse 11. Tom Sheep. This part is important. Thank you, my friend. Cain.
And the residue of the people that were left in the city, and those that fell away, that fell into the kingdom of Babylon, and the residue of the multitude, that Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, carried away captive. But the captain of the guard left the poorest of the land to the vine dressers and the husbandmen.
So there were still some people in there, even though they were not a kingdom. So when we speak later on about the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. They were not a kingdom, even though there were still people there. You're not a kingdom without a king. Okay, so after the situation that happened, brothers and sisters, with Hoshea, king of the northern tribes of Israel, and Shalman the song. And then he died, and his son Sargon took the credit for taking over the capital of the northern kingdom. Then later on, as stated, Assyria fell, all right, to Babylon. Babylon now comes up as a power in 606/605 BCE under the era of Nebuchadnezzar. So Nebuchadnezzar, as stated, is the one who spoke about this king here in this particular record, in his own records. All right. So next we got confirming the biblical record. All right. Next we got, brothers and sisters, Babylon that then came up. Now Babylon comes up from 606 to 538 BCE. Now the Babylonians, brothers and sisters, fell to the people united called the Persians and the Medes. Okay? They were two distinct people. The Medes were from Japhet, and the Persians were Elam. They were the Elamites. You will find out that the Elamites were also the southern people that took over where the Sumerians were. That's a whole nother subject, get into the book. Now, getting back to the point right here. They united as a kingdom. That's why in Esther and Nehemiah and Daniel and Ezra, we see the kingdom of the Medes and the Persians. But prior to the children of Israel meeting them, they were two separate kingdoms until the era of a guy by the name of Cyrus II. All right? Cyrus II, my brother, go into the book of Ezra, chapter 1, so we can confirm what we're talking about in this record. This, as stated, is called Hebrew history to be noted and understood. And of course, there's some stuff that I just can't get into for time, but not trying to play salesman, it's in the book I wrote. All right, so we're in the book of Ezra, chapter 1, verse 1. All right? Keep on going. Keep on going. It's after Daniel. All right, now Ezra 1:1, Tom Sheet.
Now the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, that the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah might be accomplished. The Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, the king of Persia, that made a proclamation throughout all his kingdom, and put also in writing, saying, Thus says Cyrus, king of Persia, all the kings of the earth have the Lord, the God of heaven, given me, and he hath charged me to build him a house in Jerusalem, which is in Judah.
Now, when Cyrus defeated the guy by the name of Belshazzar of the Babylonians, all right, in the year 538 or 539 BCE, okay, we begin to see, know, and understand that he released all of the prisoners that the Babylonians had to themselves, all right? So what we're reading of is what they call in history, noted as the Second Temple, all right? So that's something to be noted for edification purposes, Aki, like Shama. So just want that to be noted for edification purposes. All right, next, we're speaking in this particular part. Okay, the finished temple was done. Just want to get this done a bit more clearer. We're speaking in regards 516 BCE. That is the era of the Second Temple. All right, so that's something to be noted for edification purposes. So we have, okay, the Second Temple that was being built. Now, some of the stuff I want to touch on in closing in this particular part about the Israelites with the Medes and the Persians is this. They had a little bit of more freedom. A little bit, not totally, because Nehemiah, we come to find out in Nehemiah 2, had to wind up so with this particular aspect in regards to what happened with the Persians, They had a little bit, as stated, a little bit of more freedom. Now, in regards to that particular case, you may want to look up when you get the chance, Murashu, M-U-R-A, Murashu tablets. All right? The Murashu tablets date to the 5th century BCE, and it speaks about the Ayudian, or the Yududu, which is the Persian / and Babylonian word for Judah. So this is something to be noted in history. This is nothing made up. We went over this before with pictures, but I just want to call this one here Hebrew history to be noted and understood. All right? So the Old Testament, the last king that was not even an Israelite, but the last human king mentioned is the guy named Ahasuerus I. That's the one that you see in Esther. That's the one you see in the time of Nehemiah, and so forth and so on. So the Old Testament, if you're not counting the Apocrypha, ends off with the era of the Medes and the Persians. The Apocrypha picks up a little bit with the Medes and the Persians, then gets on into the Greek era. Okay, so hopefully this will be noted and understood for edification purposes. Now, one of the things to point out in this particular thing, you may want to look up in your own time the thing called the Elephantine papyrus. You may want to look up Bagoas. You may want to look up Temple of at Elephantine. All right, the Temple of Yah, said as the Temple of Yahweh, and the temple in a place called Elephantine. Elephantine, brothers and sisters, is in southern Egypt by the first cataract. It's south of Memphis, and it is south of Thebes. Why does that become important? Because if you keep on going there, you're going to get to the Sudan. And if you keep on going from there, you're going to get into Ethiopia. All right, so I just hope that could be noted and understood, all right, for edification purposes. So that concludes that part, and thus also concludes the presentation in this particular case. Now, let's do a nutshell of what we went over in closing out, okay? You have the Egyptian aspect of what happened. So we got the Egyptian aspect we went over. You may want to look up the Brooklyn Papyrus 35.1446. Then after the Egyptian aspect, we went into what they refer to as the Serabit El Kadim, a Sinaitic inscription speaking of the Exodus. Then we went from there using what they refer to as Ragnal dating. Okay? For the Ragnal dating aspect, we went all the way to the time of King David, from David to Solomon. After Solomon, the kingdom split. Then we spoke about with Solomon about the Phoenician people and how he had a league with a guy named Hiram Abith. All right? Then we went over from that particular aspect to confirm it biblically, all right, that the Israelites were in part dealing with the other nations of Ham in regards to trading. Okay, so then after that particular aspect, we went from there to speak about how the Assyrians later on came against the children of Israel, all right, the northern kingdom, going against the people with Pekah, going against the people later on with Hoshea, all right, going against prior to that with the people of Menachem, Pekah, and Hoshea. Look up those three kings of Israel, and then you begin to see how Assyria winded up coming up in there. So then we went over how Assyria fell to the Babylonians, all right, in the 7th century BCE. Babylon comes up as a power. They defeat the Egyptians by taking the Egyptians' land. Later on, in 597, took over the king of Yehuda, then Jehoiakim. 11 years later, bam, slapped Yehuda again in 586 BCE. All right, so Assyria fell, Israel fell, as far as being a kingdom. Then, all right, in that particular case, Babylon then falls, okay, to the people of the Medes and the Persians, Japhet and Shem united, okay? And then you go into the Murashu aspects, still speaking about the people of Judah in that particular case. Then after that, I wound up closing out in this particular part by ending it off, speaking of the same era of the Persians, Dynasty 27 of Egypt is when the Persians were ruling, and that is when you get into the Begoas, the Temple of Yah, Temple of Yahweh, the Elephantine Papyrus. All of that's documented. Shalom. Most High bless you and keep you. My telephone number for those who will want it, all right, it's 908-587-4841. All right? I kept it in the Old Testament. This history, brothers and sisters, goes much more deeper. It goes into the era of the Greeks, then the Romans, all right? In the new book I wrote, I want to read a part of it, okay? If I can be heard and seen clearly, okay? Hello, people. I wrote this book here, Deuteronomy 28:15-68, The Condition of the Blacks. I want to read a part of this in closing out, because a lot of times people try to come to the Israelites, well, when it says go by ships, it's not talking about that. It's talking about the aspect of what happened with Titus. Well, Titus didn't work, so what happened with Hadrian? You jump in the gun, not realizing when you quote the Roman historian named Munter, like many people try to come to us Israelites with. Well, Munter said that the Israelites were taken after the Bar Kokhba revolt in the 2nd century AD, that they was taken to Hadrian's Wall, and then they were loaded into ships, which was going on its way to Egypt and had shipwreck. So if Munter, the Roman historian, was saying they had shipwreck, how can that still be in line with the prophecy about them going into Egypt? If they had shipwreck, that means they never really made it there, unless I'm just mistaken. Okay. But anyway, it says this in concluding that it is incumbent, this is on page 108 in this book right here, it is incumbent upon the Israelites to set the record straight. The matter of Deuteronomy 28:68 is not in regards to the Israelites and the Romans. The portion of Deuteronomy 28:68 is after verse 64. And thus the scattering happened prior to the Israelites being shipped. One cannot say that the Israelites were shipped from the land of Israel by the Romans to Africa in Northeast Africa, then leave the story alone as if that is the end of the history of the Israelites. The Israelites in history continued after the matter of Pompey to Hadrian. Those who attempt to say that the Israelites were shipped by the Romans to Egypt, notice they never addressed the future of the children of Israel. Brother, give me Isaiah 43 verse 5. And we're going to conclude with the word of the Most High. And all having been heard, fear Yah, keep his commandments. And these are the people that the Most High gave his commandments to. If you can, my brother, go with me into the book of Isaiah, chapter 43, verse 5. Toda Aki.
Isaiah chapter 43, verse 5. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Fear not.
Fear not.
For I am thee, with thee.
For I am with thee.
I will bring thy seed from the east.
No, it's not a religion. The Most High said, I will bring what?
Thy seed from
your religion, your friends, the other nations. I will bring what?
Thy seed from the east.
The seed is, okay, from the east, read.
And gather thee from the west.
I will bring the seed from the east and gather thee from the west. Okay, so Israel didn't fall and come into oblivion like the ancient Canaanites. Read.
I will say to the north, give up.
Right.
And to the south, keep not back.
This is talking about the north, south, east, and west. He would say to the north, give up, and to the south, keep not back. And gather thy seed from the east and gather thee from the west. North, south, east, and west, the Most High speaking about the scattering of Israel, but you want to end the story of Israel with the Roman Empire. You out your mind. Read. Thank you.
Bring my sons from far.
Who's the son of the Most High? Israel. Read.
And my daughters from the end of the earth.
Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 19. His sons and his daughters. Deuteronomy 32, Deuteronomy 32, when you go in there and read verse 7 and 8, when the Most High gave the nations their inheritance, he has set bounds according to the children of Israel. So his sons and his daughters in Isaiah 43, verse 5 and 6 is the nation of Israel. And it says their seed, not their religion. Read.
Everyone that is called by my name, and whom I created for my glory.
Read on.
I have formed them. Yeah, I have formed them, made them. blind people that have eyes shall be brought forth, and the deaf that have ears, all the nations are gathered together, and the people are assembled, who among them can declare this, and announce to this foreign things. Let them bring their witnesses, and they may be justified, and let them hear and say, it is true.
Right. So the children of Israel did not fall out of oblivion or into oblivion after Hadrian of Rome. So stop the story about Munter, this so-called famous Roman historian, because you're still trying to neglect the biblical prophecy that the Most High said about Israel. Every bad or sad prophecy the Most High said about Israel came to pass. So by default, every good and positive prophecy about Israel will also come to pass. And with that, let's close out. Shalom. Hallelujah.
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 Baruch atah ya Eloheinu, we Elohe Abotenu, Elohe Abraham, Elohe Yitzchak, we Elohe Yisrael, Ha'el HaGibor, Ha'el HaNorah, Ha'el HaShalit, Ha'el HaShaddai, Ein Etzlaka, Ein Shaweh Laka, Ein Timoka, Bashamayim Ba'aretz, Mi Kadonenu, Ein, Mi Kamalkenu, Ein, Ki Rakata Malkenu, Rakata Anaknu Odin, Rakata Anaknu Mitwadim Katanu, Hirshanu, He'evinu, Wa'agam Ken, Rakata Anaknu Mekpalim, Washo'alim, Lisdoa Kulanu, Babakushaya Salaklanu, Mekol Katotenu, Wagam Ken, He'esafna et Bnei Israel, Laka, Wagam Ken, He'esafna et Zera Yisrael, Me'eret Tamara, Wagam Ken Ko, Pikuzet et Bnei Israel, Be'eret HaKredma, Wagam Ken Ko, Dukate Bnei Israel, Be'eret Zafon, Wagam Ken Be'eret HaNeged, Wagam Ken Lawa Na et Bnei Israel, Laka B'Shalom. Hallelujah.
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 Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Shalom.